features from USA Today for Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is Mary Beth. Is daylight saving time a problem for Judaism? Some fear permanence would infringe on prayer, by Mark Ramirez. Each morning before work or school, Orthodox Jews recite the first of 3 daily prayers, whether alone or gathered at a synagogue and fellowship. Men don ritual shawls and leather prayer boxes, the time of the prayer dictated not by a clock but by the rising of the sun. The later the morning is, the later that prayers can be taking place, said Rabbi A.D. Matzin, National Director of Government Affairs for Agudath Israel of America, an organization representing Orthodox Jews. That's why many Orthodox Jews, he said, are concerned about the prospect of proposed legislation that would make daylight saving time permanent. Introduced by Representative Vern Buchanan, Republican Florida, the Sunshine Protection Act of 2025 would institute permanent daylight saving time for most states, meaning the majority of Americans would no longer have to spring forward or fall back the twice-a-year task of adjusting their clocks, watches, and other timepieces. The legislation is currently before the U.S. Senate after being overwhelmingly passed by the House of Representatives 308 to 117. It has the support of President Donald Trump, who has called seasonal clock changes, quote-unquote, ridiculous. Much of Jewish practice is tied to the calendar, and more specifically, sunrise and sunset, said Rabbi Josh Joseph of the Orthodox Union, the country's largest Orthodox Jewish organization. Those events dictate morning and evening prayer times and the start and end times for Shabbat and holidays, he said. Many Jews gather each morning in synagogues for morning prayer, said Joseph, the organization's executive vice president and chief operating officer. If sunrise is pushed back an hour, services can't begin until an hour later, end quote. During winter months, he said, that would negatively affect the day's start for many, complicating efforts to get to work or school on time, particularly in the Midwest and mountain states, where sunrise in some places would be pushed well past 8 a.m. for long stretches, disrupting a fundamental religious practice of observant Jewish communities. The times for prayers and their accompanying rituals will be thrown into disarray, which in turn will put into jeopardy their proper fulfillment, discourage synagogue attendance, and result in late arrival for work, reads a letter sent by Agudath Israel to congressional offices. Jewish religious and professional life will be deeply unended, end quote. A chart compiled by the organization, which is urging senators to oppose or amend the bill, lists U.S. cities and how they would be affected by the law if passed. California is least affected, but go to Indiana or Michigan and the reality is harsher, Matzin said. In most places where Orthodox Jews live, sunrise would be after 8 o'clock. In L.A., it would only be 10 days a year, but in South Bend, Indiana, it's close to 150 days a year. For 55 of those days, he said, sunlight wouldn't appear on South Bend's horizon until after 9 o'clock. In Helena, Montana, a post-9 a.m. sunrise would occur 50 days a year. In Boise, Idaho, 64, and in Bismarck, North Dakota, 75. This change would severely disrupt Jewish morning rituals, which require the arrival of natural dawn, wrote Rabbi Yosef Chaim Danziger of South Bend's Hebrew Orthodox congregation in a letter opposing the legislation. Such late sunrises would make the timing of prayer incompatible with the start of the typical school and workday, placing an undue burden on our many highly productive community members, end quote. How morning prayer could be disrupted. Daylight saving time currently occurs from March to November, with most U.S. residents, except those in the states of Arizona and Hawaii, as well as territories like Guam and Puerto Rico, which don't observe it, moving their clocks forward an hour to prolong evening daylight. Passage of the Sunshine Protection Act would mean no longer setting clocks back during winter months to encompass more daylight in the morning. Winter sunrises would happen later, producing darker mornings for swaths of the country. Supporters tout the benefit of later sunsets, allowing for more evening activities, in addition to eliminating the twice-a-year task of changing clocks. Opposition, however, has come from many parents who worry about the safety of children walking to school or waiting for a bus in the darkness of pre-dawn mornings. Some health professionals and sleep organizations also caution that the change would conflict with the body's circadian rhythms. For Orthodox Jews, who according to the Pew Research Center comprise nearly 1 in 10 Jews living in the United States, children's safety is likewise a concern. On average, Orthodox Jews have twice as many kids as non-Orthodox Jews, according to the center. But such worries are compounded by the act's potential disruption of Skacharit, the set of morning prayers serving as a spiritual preparation for the day. Every individual is supposed to do a morning prayer, but there are certain ones, those with great religious significance, that can only be said when there's a quorum, Motzen said. Participating in communal morning prayers, which require a quorum of 10 men and can't start until shortly after sunrise, would have to be weighed against work and school obligations and commuting arrangements. A synagogue will struggle to gather 10 men, or it may mean that people wouldn't be able to start their jobs or open their businesses on time, Motzen said. It would really disrupt the lives of many people, end quote. Some may decide to forego communal prayer and instead pray at their workplaces, he said, missing out on the benefits of fellowship and placing communal experiences at risk. Similar worries trouble Muslim communities whose mandatory morning recitations conclude precisely at dawn. It's unclear whether the Senate will tackle the issue before it breaks for a 5-week recess on August 7th. And maybe, Motzen suggests, summer isn't the best time to be voting on such things anyway. Nobody's thinking about cold winter mornings, he said. They're thinking about an extra hour to play football or enjoy the sun on the beach. They're not thinking about going to school or waiting for a bus, and they're definitely not thinking about North Dakota. Kentucky governor presses for verbal update on McConnell. Beshear's letter asks senator for transparency, by Melina Khan. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has issued a new plea for Senator Mitch McConnell to give a verbal update on his condition 6 weeks after he was hospitalized for a fall. In a July 27th letter to McConnell, Beshear called on the Kentucky Republican to directly and verbally address the people of Kentucky and provide proof of your capacity to serve or resign, end quote. It has now been 43 days since news of your hospitalization. During that time, you have cast 0 votes, engaged in no official activities, and aside from 2 photos and corresponding statements, have made no effort to communicate with your Kentucky constituents or the nation, Beshear wrote. The Democratic governor also said he sent a copy of a letter to Senator John Thune, the Republican from South Dakota, to ask the Senate Majority Leader to investigate further if McConnell does not provide an update. It came as McConnell's office released a new photo and briefing on his treatment, revealing that he is still undergoing, quote-unquote, intensive physical therapy in a rehabilitation facility. McConnell, 84, was hospitalized the morning of June 14th after experiencing a fall that left him briefly unconscious, his office said. USA Today has contacted McConnell's office for comment on Beshear's letter. Beshear asked McConnell to, quote-unquote, be honest. On the latest update from McConnell's physician, Beshear contended it, quote, does not discuss your actual condition, including whether you can speak, reason, or carry out your duties as a senator. I understand anyone's desire for privacy, but when you run for office and serve as one of a state's 2 U.S. senators, you willingly abdicate much of your personal privacy. That's the deal, and we all know it when we run, he wrote. McConnell has faced bipartisan calls for transparency over the lack of information about his condition. Last week, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told reporters McConnell should provide an update on his health or resign. Beshear also referenced, quote-unquote, important events happening on Capitol Hill in McConnell's absence. The senator has missed more than 36 roll call votes in the Senate, including on key measures such as the Annual Defense Policy Bill and on ending the Iran war. Kentuckians are just asking you to be honest, Beshear said. It's not the governor's first push for transparency amid McConnell's Senate absence. On July 8th, Beshear similarly sent a letter to the senator asking for an update because constituents were, quote, increasingly concerned about the current state of your health and well-being and ability to hold office in the United States Senate, end quote. McConnell office issues update, looking forward to return. McConnell's office said in an update July 27th that doctors still have not medically cleared the senator to return to work or leave the rehabilitation facility where he is being treated. As always, I appreciate all of your continued well wishes, and I'm looking forward to getting back to the Senate and to Kentucky soon, McConnell said in the update. The Office of the Attending Physician, which provides medical assistance to members of Congress, also released a statement in the update saying doctors were visiting McConnell every day. The lifelong effects of McConnell's bout with childhood polio continue to be, quote, a significant factor in his mobility, end quote, the statement said. Quote, since his discharge from hospital care, he has maintained a strenuous course of physical therapy and rehabilitation, including multiple sessions a day designed to rebuild strengths and reduce the risk of future falls, the office said. McConnell also released a new photo dated July 26 of himself alongside his wife, Elaine Chao, as part of the update. Trump seeks help on mail-ins. He appeals to Supreme Court on ballot rules. Maureen Grubb. Washington. The Trump administration on July 27th asked the Supreme Court to let President Donald Trump tighten rules nationwide for mail-in ballots before this fall's midterm elections as he seeks to exert more federal control over voting. Trump filed the emergency appeal after lower courts blocked the administration from creating a federal list of eligible voters and limiting delivery of mail ballots only to people on that list in nearly half the states. In June, a federal judge in Boston said key parts of an executive order Trump signed in March were unconstitutional, ruling that those constituents can't be enforced, or those components can't be enforced this year in the 23 states that are challenging the order. In July, an appeals court rejected the administration's argument that the state's lawsuit was premature because the executive order has not been fully implemented. The Boston-based First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said the changes are already straining states and would sow confusion and threaten disenfranchisement of many eligible voters if allowed to go into effect for the November elections. But the Justice Department told the Supreme Court that pausing Trump's executive order is, quote, especially indefensible because the agencies are still deliberating over how, if at all, to implement the order, end quote. The lower court, quote, preemptively decided that whatever the agencies may choose to do will necessarily be unlawful, end quote, the government's lawyers wrote. The Supreme Court asked the states challenging the court order to respond to the administration's appeal by August 3rd. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat, New York, said Trump's executive order is, quote, nothing other than voter suppression by another name, end quote. He said that the court must reject this latest brazen attempted power grab. Mailed ballots, key fight before consequential midterms. The fight over rules for absentee ballots is a key battleground in the 2026 midterms that will determine which party controls Congress. Democrats can take full control by flipping a handful of seats in the House and Senate. Voting by mail has decreased since its peak during the COVID-19 pandemic, but nearly 30% of voters still cast a ballot that way in the 2024 elections. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to vote by mail. Trump, who has voted by mail himself, contends absentee ballots are often fraudulent. He directed the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to compile lists of confirmed U.S. citizens eligible to vote for states to consult. The U.S. Postal Service was ordered to only deliver ballots to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. The Justice Department must prioritize investigating and prosecuting state and local election officials who give federal ballots to anyone deemed ineligible to vote. States administer federal elections. The appeals court said Trump's executive order directs unprecedented level of involvement by federal officials in how states administer elections, end quote. Under the Constitution, states are assigned the role of administering federal elections, But Trump has called for greater federal control since losing his 2020 re-election bid. He has continued to push the false claim that he lost because of widespread voter fraud. Trump has proposed legislation to require voters to provide identification at the polls and proof of citizenship when registering as part of a broader bill which has stalled in Congress. In addition, judges have blocked a different executive order that would have required potential voters present documentation proving their citizenship in order to register to vote. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. Comey seeks dismissal of Seychelles case, citing freedom of speech, by Aisha Bagchai. Former FBI Director James Comey is asking a federal judge to dismiss a controversial criminal case that accuses him of threatening to harm or kill President Donald Trump by posting an image of Seychelles on social media, calling the case an unconstitutional attempt to suppress his criticisms of the president. The case centers on an image of Seychelles in the shape of 8647, which Comey posted on social media in May 2025. 86 is slang for to throw out or to get rid of, according to Merriam-Webster. Trump is the 47th president. Comey deleted the post within hours after some Trump supporters interpreted the post as a threat against the president. He said in a new post that he, quote, didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence, and he opposes violence of any kind, end quote. The Justice Department secured an indictment against Comey this past April after Trump's former personal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, became acting attorney general that month. On July 27th, Comey's legal team said in their plea for dismissal that if the case against him is allowed to go forward, it would invite future prosecutions against other perceived political enemies who oppose the president. Quote, forcing Mr. Comey to stand trial for a statement opposing the president, even if he is ultimately acquitted, would itself be an unconstitutional punishment of free speech, Comey's legal team wrote in his court filing. A DOJ spokesperson highlighted in a statement to USA Today that the department secured the charges from a North Carolina federal grand jury. The spokesperson said Comey, like all defendants, would have his day in court, and it wouldn't be fair to the prosecution or to Comey for the DOJ to reveal further details on the case. The case against Comey is the second brought by the DOJ since Trump publicly called for him to be prosecuted in September 2025. The first case, which alleged that Comey lied to Congress, was dismissed in November after a judge ruled that the prosecutor who secured the charges was unlawfully appointed. The DOJ has appealed that ruling. The most recent charges against Comey have sparked widespread criticism, including from conservative legal voices who have argued that a successful prosecution would mean the government may criminalize a wide range of political speech. Tensions between Trump and Comey go back years. In 2017, Trump fired Comey, who was director of the FBI. At the time, the Bureau was investigating possible contacts between the 2016 Trump campaign and the Russian government. In the years after, Comey became a critic of the president. In their July 27th filing, Comey's legal team wrote that 8647 is a well-known political slogan expressing opposition to the president. In fact, thousands of items featuring the slogan have been sold on the internet and are available to this day, and the slogan was commonly displayed at protests around the country in the months preceding Mr. Comey's post, according to the court filing. In 2022, conservative commentator Jack Posobiec posted 8646 on social media, referring to President Joe Biden. Asked on CBS Mornings in April whether the DOJ would pursue charges against Posobiec, Blanche said he had no idea whether that post was investigated, but that you cannot compare, well, what happened last time and what happened this time. Supreme Court to weigh rules on weapons. Semi-automatic rifles are put in historic context, by Maureen Grope, Washington. Gun regulations were a big focus of the Supreme Court this year. In the coming Supreme Court season, the issue will again be in the crosshairs. This time, the focus will be on semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. Modern gun rules, the Supreme Court said in a landmark 2022 decision, can't stray too far from historical weapon regulations to pass constitutional muster. While the Supreme Court appeared to pull back from that controversial test just 2 years later, two Second Amendment decisions the conservative court handed down in June show it's firmly in place, which could have implications for the coming showdowns over semi-automatic rifles. This year, the Supreme Court struck down Hawaii's attempt to limit where guns can be carried in public. It also ruled in a unanimous decision that a law blocking regular drug users from having a gun was too broad. In both cases, a majority on the Supreme Court said neither restriction could be supported by laws dating to the 1700s or 1800s and 1800s. Quote, it looked like the court was going to accept relatively loose analogies in applying the Second Amendment to current gun laws, said Adam Winkler, a UCLA School of Law professor and author of Gunfight, The Battle Over the Right to Bear Arms in America. He added, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, end quote. In the 2022 decision, the Supreme Court said a gun regulation must be, quote, consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, end quote. A 9-0 smackdown. A major test of that approach is coming this fall, when the Supreme Court will debate whether state and local governments can ban possession of semi-automatic rifles such as AR-15s as a response to mass shootings. Iden Johnson, Director of Federal Affairs for Gun Owners of America, is optimistic that the court's 2024 decision upholding a law banning domestic abusers from owning guns in a case called United States versus Rahimi was an aberration. Quote, I do think maybe things looked bleaker for gun rights activists after Rahimi, and things look a lot better when you see a 9-0 smackdown, Johnson said of the court's recent unanimous ruling against a broad federal ban on gun ownership by marijuana users. The court's 3 liberal justices joined that opinion despite Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's complaints that the historical tradition test is, quote-unquote, unworkable and should be scrapped. Gun violence prevention groups are likewise critical of the test, but still see signs that it can be used to address modern-day realities. Nothing in the recent decisions undermines the court's previous rulings that the nation has historically restricted dangerous and unusual weapons and can continue to do so, said Douglas Letter, the chief legal officer for the Brady Gun Violence Prevention Advocacy Group. Quote, obviously there are disagreements on where that line should be drawn, Letter said. We think it absolutely should be drawn so that assault weapon bans are constitutional, end quote. Landmark Second Amendment rulings. Courts have been debating what is allowed after the justices ruled in 2008 that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess firearms for traditionally lawful purposes. That landmark decision was followed 2 years later by a ruling that the Second Amendment applies to state and local governments, the source of most gun regulations. And in 2022, the court in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin created the quote-unquote historical tradition test. But in 2024, the court said domestic abusers could be prevented from having a gun, ruling that only a historical analog and not a historical twin is required, according to Notre Dame Law School Associate Professor Haley Proctor, who specializes in the Second Amendment. Quote, the decision led many to speculate that the court was backing away from Bruin's demanding test, Proctor wrote. When it comes to common sense measures like disarming abusive boyfriends, the court seemed like it was not going to be too picky about the government's historical evidence, end quote. Historical analogies can be bewildering, one expert says. Still, the historical test was robustly applied in the June decisions. Quote, what we see is the justices sort of tacking back and forth, trying to make this Bruin history and tradition test work across the spectrum of gun rights and regulation questions that come up, said Darrell Miller, a University of Chicago law professor. Miller agrees with Jackson's criticism that the test has not delivered on its promises of being simpler to apply and more constraining on the ability of judges to reach their preferred outcome, compared with analyzing whether a restriction was sufficiently tailored to a modern policy goal. Plus, the debates about historical analogies can leave observers scratching their heads, he said. When they come down with decisions that ask questions like, is modern jet airplane more like a horse, or is it more like a carriage, or is it more like a boat? I think people that are paying attention just feel a little bewildered, Miller said. Drinking habits of the Founding Fathers. In the case about whether regular use of marijuana can disqualify someone from owning a gun, for example, Justice Neil Gorsuch emphasized how much alcohol was consumed by John Adams, George Washington, James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson. Quote, had habitual drunkard laws applied to those who simply drank regularly, many notable early Americans could have faced trouble, Gorsuch wrote, in rejecting the old laws as justification for the modern one. Joseph Blocher, co-founder of the Center for Firearms Law at Duke University School of Law, said that while history always matters when interpreting the Constitution, people on both sides of the gun control debate would probably be surprised by the level of historical detail in some of the decisions. The daily drinking habits of the Founding Fathers may be interesting to read about, he said, quote, but there's a disconnect there between what most people think the Constitution is for, end quote. It would be weird if the federal law prohibiting gun possession by habitual users of controlled substances were to become constitutional if it turned out that James Madison drank only half a pint of whiskey instead of a full pint, he said. It's just a strange way to think about law. It feels to me like it's asking an awful lot of history, more in some cases, really, than it can bear, end quote. Split lower court decisions. Applying the historical test to bans on AR-15s could be challenging because the weapons are far more powerful than the guns Americans used when the Second Amendment was adopted. Quote, from 1791 through the mid-19th century, the ubiquitous firearm was a single-shot, muzzle-load firearm, a divided panel of judges on the Chicago-based 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said in July when upholding Illinois ban on certain semi-automatic rifles and high-capacity magazines. AR-15s equipped with large-capacity magazines are a far cry from these antecedents, end quote. Like other appeals courts that have upheld similar bans, the Seventh Circuit judges said that laws could be supported by historical rules about Bowie knives. Because the knives' large blades caused particularly bloody and gruesome injuries, many state legislatures banned them or imposed prohibitive taxes, the Seventh Circuit panel said in its 2-1 decision. But days later, a different appeals court ruled against New Jersey's assault weapons ban. Are Bowie knives like AR-15s? The Bowie knife restrictions don't work as an historical justification, the Philadelphia-based 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said in a 10-15 vote, or 10-5 vote. There's no evidence that Bowie knives were commonly used for lawful purposes before they were restricted, the court said. By contrast, there are about 24 million AR-15s and similar sports weapons in circulation in the United States, according to the court. Even if semi-automatic rifles are disproportionately used in some crimes, the majority said, those may still represent a small fraction of those weapons' overwhelmingly lawful use. The iPhone of guns. Blocher at Duke University School of Law said it's hard to see how the Supreme Court could give a partial win to each side in the AR-15 case, as the justices did in their decision about gun owners who regularly use pot. In that opinion, Gorsuch described the ruling as a narrow one that left untouched gun bans on drug addicts or others considered too dangerous to have a firearm. The upcoming AR-15 case also has the challenge of how prominent the weapons have become in the national debate. They are connected in the public mind with mass shootings, but they're popular with law-abiding gun owners. Quote, these weapons have become very, very wrapped up in identity on many sides of the debate, Blocher said. The time is 29 minutes past the hour. Trump pressures Thune over fate of SAVE Act. President says Senate should stay until passage. Joey Garrison and Zachary Schmerly. Washington. President Donald Trump is calling for Senate Majority Leader John Thune to keep the Senate in session and not allow lawmakers to break for summer recess until Senate Republicans pass his voter ID bill. Trump's demand in a July 27th post on Truth Social comes as the president has applied increasing pressure on Thune to find a way to pass the long-stalled Save America Act in the Senate. The bill would require proof of citizenship and voter identification to vote in federal elections while dramatically scaling back mail-in voting ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Quote, John Thune should not allow the United States Senate to leave town until it passes the Save America Act, or far better still, terminates the filibuster, where Republicans can then quickly pass everything they ever dreamed of, Trump said in the Post. The Senate is set to go on recess August 7th and return to Washington September 14th. Thune, speaking to reporters after Trump's social media post, wouldn't rule out canceling the Senate recess, but suggested he would do so only if there's a realistic path to pass the Save America Act. Quote, if somebody can show me how we can get an outcome, how we get a result, how we get an answer to this, I'm all for it, Thune said. But if we are going to be sitting here in endless quorum calls, I don't know if that's in anybody's best interest. Thune said he last spoke to Trump about 10 days ago. Tension between the two men has mounted over that time. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said last week that Trump's patience is running out with Thune amid the Senate's inaction on the legislation. Trump, in a speech in Georgia on July 22nd, urged his supporters to contact Thune over the legislation. Everybody call John Thune at the Senate. He's the leader of the Republican Party, and tell him to get this stuff approved, the president said. Trump says he has a good relationship with Thune. Trump said he has a good relationship with Republican Senator Leader. He's just got to get this job done, the president told reporters on July 27th. Asked if he wants Thune replaced as a leader, Trump said, I haven't even thought about it. Trump repeatedly has called for Senate Republicans to abolish the filibuster, the Senate's 60-vote threshold, to allow Republicans to pass the Save America Act with a simple majority in a chamber they control, 53 to 47. Yet the proposal doesn't appear to have enough support to pass even with the filibuster. All Senate Democrats have expressed opposition to the act. In addition, 4 Republicans, Susan Collins of Maine, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Thom Tillis of North Carolina, voted against a motion in June to add the legislation to a Republican budget package. Republican support nowhere close to ending filibuster, Thune says. Thune suggested opposition among Senate Republicans to eliminate filibuster to pass the SAVE Act is even greater. He recounted to reporters that Trump's own legislative team found about 15 no votes in a group of 20 Republican senators polled on ending the filibuster and the Senate's blue slip process, which Trump wants eliminated as well, so senators would no longer hold virtual veto power over judicial nominations in their states. This is not an open question, it's just a fact, and the facts don't change, Thune said. Now, if he can change the facts and start moving some of those senators who are no into yeses, then we can have a different conversation. In a push to bypass the Senate filibuster, House Republicans approved a $95 billion budget framework July 22nd, backed by House Speaker Mike Johnson, that includes elements of the SAVE Act, America Act. Johnson's goal is to pass the framework through a budget process called reconciliation, which would require a simple majority in the Senate. Yet the Senate parliamentarian could strike down an attempt to pass a voting overhaul as a budget bill. And whether a reconciliation bill with components of the SAVE Act could reach a 50-vote threshold in the Senate was unclear. Still, Trump called on the Senate last week to adopt the budget resolution before leaving for the August recess, saying on Truth Social, "We are ready to work side by side with the Senate to get this done for the American people." End quote. We'll now read from the money section. Customization grows at Ford. Automakers Custom Garage Toy Store delivers goods. Henry Payne from the Detroit News. Ford Motor Company's toy store just got a lot bigger, with extensive accessory options for brand icons, Bronco, Maverick, Mustang, and F-150 models. With more models in the pipeline, Ford Custom Garage encourages owners to customize their new buys with a dizzying array of decals, wheels, interiors, shocks, and engine performance parts, all under the umbrella of a factory warranty. Goodbye aftermarket, hello Ford dealer configurator. The Do-It-Yourself Palooza not only acknowledges that 46% of new Ford buyers accessorize their models, but it leans into Ford's redefinition as a maker of passion vehicles. No longer wedded to filling every market segment, Ford, like a premium brand, seeks to light a fire with customers. We're getting out of the boring car business and into the iconic vehicle business, CEO Jim Farley told Car Magazine in 2024. The cheapest model on the Ford lot is now a $30,000 Maverick. Think Porsche, which has created an a la carte menu for its cars so owners can spec it to their individual taste. Quote, there are vehicles that we want to make sure capture a broad audience, but we always know there's individualized taste, said Ford Racing Parts Planning Supervisor Ryan Long. Everybody's unique. We want to resonate with those individual customers and provide them with more of what they are looking for. We give them the option to take their vehicle to the next level safely through a dealer warranty, end quote. After a day burning rubber all over Michigan International Speedway's 1,400-acre campus in the Irish Hills, here are the highlights of the hottest accessories for your next Ford Dream Cruiser. The Mustang FP800s. The FP800s package puts a $48,795 Mustang GT on a steroid diet with 810 horsepower and 615 horsepower compared with the standard V8's 480 and 415. That's just 5 horses shy of $327,960 Mustang GT Sport Supercar and more than $106,000 795 horse Mustang Dark Horse SC for way fewer dollars. Oof! I popped the clutch at 3,000 RPM and laid rubber down the paddock of MI's. The FP800's torque overwhelmed the rear tires. You can choose the $10,500 Whipple Supercharger by itself in the configurator, but the safer bet is the full $18,500 FP800 package before installation labor that includes upgraded rear half shafts to handle the added 50% twist. The package also comes with upgrade springs, dampers, and sway bar for a 25% increase in chassis stiffness. That was evidence as I flung my Mustang FP800s around the infield course. I inhaled short chutes with the massive V8 torque, the 5-liter Coyote engine howling, but the stiffer chassis meant my hair didn't turn white entering approaching turns. Stable turn-in, planted exit. But wait, there's more. Buyers can also option active magnetic ride shocks, so you have 3 drive modes to manage ride stiffness: normal, sport, track. Owners, in addition to the FP800's signature colored nostrils wheels, can option carbon fiber accessories like a rear wing. In the universe of GT, Dark Horse SC, and GTD trims, not to mention aftermarket Shelby, Roche, and RTR models, you'll want a custom mod to stand out. The Ford F-150. By contrast, I like the 700 horsepower, $10,250 supercharger only option for Ford's light-duty truck. Available on any V8 powered trim, the Whipple Supercharger is the ultimate stealth performance accessory. The Porsche at the Dream Cruise stoplight won't know what hit them until their doors have been sucked off, the eerie shriek of the supercharged truck disappearing in the distance. Like the Stang's FP 800's package, however, the F-150's full $26,875 FP 700S package brings plenty of bling. Think bespoke lowered suspension, wheels, tires, fender badge, graphic, and front splitter on any 5-liter Coyote V8 equipped F50 trim. Vroom! That sonic boom you heard all the way in Detroit when I nailed the throttle of a 0 to 60 mile per hour run in an FP 700S equipped Lariat trim was thanks to an extra custom garage exhaust accessory. How loud? It drowned out the supercharger whine. Superchargers are in. Electric motors are out. The Maverick SV300T. Not content to let Big Brother F-Series have all the fun, the Maverick truck also has custom garage game. The subcompact pickup has been a mega hit from the hybrid fuel sipper to the Lobo Street Rod. Lobo boasts 250 horses from its 2-liter Turbo 4 and drifting abilities thanks to twin rear clutch packs pulled off the old Focus RS hot hatch. The ST300T package, T for Turbo, offers the Maverick's athletic suspension to any 2-liter Turbo 4-powered MAV model. That and an extra 50 horsepower got a total of 300, courtesy of the Mustang's EcoBoost turbocharger strapped to the engine. The SV300T was based on programs like the Fiesta ST and the Focus ST and RS that added personality, character, and performance for affordable entry-level vehicles, said Long. We wanted to recreate that character on a modern vehicle. So in the world of a Maverick, we created that performance characteristic that people really liked in the Focus ST, end quote. I had a blast hustling the SV300T equipped Maverick, Lobo, and XLT models around an MIS parking lot autocross track. The $5,000 SV300T package also looks good standing still, thanks to a bespoke front splitter, wheels, and graphic to complement intercooler, exhaust, and suspension upgrades under the sheet metal. Bronco. The off-road dirt kicker already is a customizer's favorite with add-ons like the Sasquatch tire package and more models. Base, Big Bend, Black Diamond, Outer Banks, Badlands, Wild Track, Heritage Edition, 60th Anniversary Edition, Strobe Edition, Raptor. Then I have socks. The custom garage adds to that choice with a cornucopia of custom packages. Sinister Bronze, Matte Black, Dark Trail Series Titanium Gray, Coastal, and my favorite ORV, short for off-road vehicle. The latter echoes the capabilities of aftermarket shops like Vaughn Gittin Jr.'s RTR Ready to Rock outfit that already provides dealer-delivered, warranty-covered hot rod packages like the $26,595 Bronco RTR ROVR upgrade. For less cost, the OVR package brings similar capability with 35-inch tires, 2-inch suspension lift, upgraded Fox shocks, skid pallets, and steel bumper. And for those seeking more giddy-up, a custom garage upgrade will juice Bronco with 38 more horsepower. Ram pickup trucks can become generators, by Liam Raphael, Detroit Free Press. Nowadays, pickup trucks, especially those the Detroit 3 automakers make, deliver a lot of power to the wheels. But some Detroit trucks can also deliver a lot of power to things like buzzsaws, camping equipment, or microwaves. The Ram 1500 onboard power system, recently tested by the Detroit Free Press, part of the USA Today network, essentially allows a run-of-the-mill pickup truck to double as a generator. It works simply. There is an electrical hookup in the bed of the trunk that has 2 outlets. Park the truck, leave the engine running, and plug in what you need to power. Power strip works too, as long as the power demand remains below the maximum output of the generator. Ram offers several power configurations, including up to 2 kilowatts of power in the 1500, with heavy-duty Ram pickups offering up to 2.4 kilowatts. The sales pitch from Ram is that blue-collar workers often tote around mobile generators to power their workstations or rely on larger, more expensive vehicles to power their tools. With the onboard power system, there is no need to lug around a generator because it is built into the truck. The feature is available on all Ram 1500 trim levels for $995. Ford Motor Company and General Motors also have similar features available in their trucks too, at around the same price range. Ford first released its Pro Power onboard feature in 2021 and has since sold offerings ranging from a comparable 2 kilowatts power system to a 9.6 kilowatts package that could power a house or food truck for several hours on the brand's now discontinued EV pickup, the Lightning. The free press used the onboard power system to successfully test a microwave, lamp, and fan during a hot day in Detroit. The time is now 45 minutes past the hour. Genesis G80 Preview, premium features without the high price. Brand disrupts rankings with its innovation, by Charles Singh. I spent a week driving the 2026 Genesis G80, the South Korean luxury brand's midsize sedan. We recently tested the G90 full-size sedan for USA Today Cars and wanted to compare the two for prospective drivers. Genesis doesn't have a long production history like its rivals BMW and Mercedes-Benz, but the car brand is disrupting rankings thanks to innovative and value-oriented models. The 2026 Genesis G80 has an ultra-luxurious cabin, bold driving dynamics, and plenty of great standard features. Here's what I thought of the midsize luxury car after driving it every day for a week. What stands out about the 2026 Genesis G80? Like its big brother, the Genesis G90, the G80 has an understated curb appeal. Its exterior is more classy than bold, and its front grille is its defining characteristic. The G80's interior quality stands out because once you pop the door open, it feels like something out of a James Bond film. Quiet luxury is tough to ignore when executed correctly, and Genesis has masterfully designed this cabin. Aside from being comfortable and stylish, the 2026 Genesis G80 is also fun to drive thanks to a gutsy powertrain and nimble handling. Performance, handling, and efficiency, how does it drive? Genesis midsize car is powerful for its size. It accelerates quickly and handles well on highways and tight suburban roads. Its city's gas mileage isn't the best, 20 miles per gallon, but its highway gas mileage makes up for it, 29 miles per gallon. The 2026 Genesis G90 uses a 2.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder that produces a massive 300 horsepower, which is great for driving enthusiasts. Genesis also offers a 3.5-liter twin turbocharged V6 with 375 horsepower, a thrilling amount of power for a midsize car. The G90 boasts the performance of a sports car, but its cabin is clearly the star of the show. Interior tech and comfort, what's it like inside? Genesis midsize luxury sedan comes standard with comfy, high-quality premium leatherette seats. Both front and rear outboard seats are heated, and the front row of seats are massaging capabilities in some trims. The instrument panel is wrapped in leather, and the cabin features a matte finish wood trim. Will the 2026 Genesis G80 fit your lifestyle? The G80 comfortably seats 5. It's 197.6 inches long, 75.8 inches wide without mirrors, and 57.7 inches tall. The Genesis G80's rear seat has 38.7 inches of legroom. It has 13.1 cubic feet of cargo space, which is adequate for small families and commuters. Genesis luxury car best suits long-distance commuters and professionals who value advanced tech and upscale cabin. Pricing, value, and competitors. Is the 2026 Genesis G80 worth buying? The 2026 Genesis G80 starts at $58,450. It comes in 5 trims, including the 3.5 Prestige Black AWD, which I tested. 2026 Genesis G80 trims. G80 2.5T AWD 58,450. G80 2.5T Advanced AWD 64,040. G80 2.5T Sport Prestige AWD $69,950. And the G80 3.5T Sport Prestige AWD $78,350. And finally, the 380 3.5T Prestige Black AWD $79,350. The G80 is worth the money because of its top-tier quality. Upper trims may price out some drivers, but Genesis trim levels vary enough in price that there are plenty of options for buyers. Not every driver will splurge on the Prestige Black AWD trim, but it's worth the money for auto enthusiasts who want to experience the best G80 tech, features, and driving experience. Genesis mid-size luxury car competes against rivals like the BMW 5 Series and Mercedes-Benz E-Class. The G80 has the most powerful base engine of the trio. BMW's mid-size luxury car is the best choice for steering response and driving engagement. The Mercedes-Benz E-Class beats its rivals in terms of cabin quality and tech. Final verdict. Who should buy the 2026 Genesis G80? The 2026 Genesis G80 is designed for commuters and drivers with small families who want a refined sedan with engaging acceleration and handling. It's a luxury car that challenges some of the most impactful nameplates in its segment. If you're looking for a luxury car with a low-key exterior and a lavish cabin, this G80 is a solid pick. Its quiet interior feels immersive, and its rear seat feels like a VIP section for passengers. I enjoy the Prestige Black trim's powerful engine. The G80, like the G90, delivers an elite driving and ownership experience for an attainable price. Look out! BMW and Mercedes-Benz Genesis is shaking up rankings in the midsize and full-size luxury car segments. Best Electric SUVs of 2026, led by Tesla, Rivian, Kia, by Charles Singh. Some of the most popular automakers, like Toyota, Ford, Tesla, and more, are producing capable electric SUVs for the American auto market. The best electric SUVs are models that are practical, easy to charge, and offer good value for the money. We've tested several gas, hybrid, and electric SUVs for USA Today Cars in 2026, including best-selling models. Here are our top picks for the best electric SUVs of 2026 so far. The best subcompact electric SUV, the 2026 Nissan Leaf. Nissan has completely redesigned the Leaf nameplate, transforming it in an affordable electric subcompact SUV for the 2026 model year. The Nissan Leaf is one of the most affordable new electric vehicles on the market, and it has a strong value proposition. The 2026 Nissan Leaf starts at $29,990. It has 303 miles of driving range, which is great for its price. The Leaf also comes with built-in NACs, also known as North American Charging Standard, port for DC fast charging. The best small electric SUV, the 2026 Tesla Model Y. Tesla's Model Y compact electric SUV is the most popular EV in America for a reason. The Model Y is a sales hit that checks all the boxes for many drivers, and it's helping thousands of buyers make the switch from gas to electric vehicles in 2026. The 2026 Tesla Model Y starts at $39,990 before taxes and additional fees. It has 321 miles of standard driving range, and it's no slouch on the highway. The Model Y has practical cabin and cargo space, and it charges quickly using Tesla superchargers. The best midsize electric SUV, the 2026 Kia EV9. The Kia EV9 takes several design cues from its gas sibling, the popular Kia Telluride. It's spacious, loaded with great standard tech, and comes in powerful upper trims with more driving range. Kia's 2026 EV9 starts at $54,900. It has 230 miles of standard driving range and comes standard with built-in NAC's port. Car and Driver ranks the EV9 as the best in its segment because of its blend of style and practicality. The best full-size electric SUV, the 2026 Rivian R1S. Rivian may be producing a new, smaller, and more affordable SUV, but its first electric SUV remains competitive for those willing to look past its high starting price. We tested the 2026 Rivian RS1, and it's easily one of the quickest electric vehicles drivers can buy for under $100,000. The quad motor trim rockets from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.5 seconds. The 2026 Rivian RIS starts at $83,990. It has 329 miles of standard driving range. The R1S is an off-roading machine with an adjustable air suspension. It's incredibly quick and capable. Additional, Rivian's software creates a unique driver experience, allowing you to customize everything about your ride, from ground clearance to sportiness. Rivian's full-size family SUV may not be cheap, but its unique capabilities and specs make it worth the money for many drivers. Jeep and Ram, Stellantis' top two brands, receive new CEOs in shakeup by Liam Replag. Ram and Jeep are both welcoming new executive leaders, as now former Jeep CEO Bob Broderdorf is stepping down after a cancer diagnosis, while Ram's departing CEO Tim Kuniskis is focusing on a larger job in the Stellantis company. Broderdorf will be succeeded by Brandon Cote, an automotive executive with experience at Mercedes-Benz, Aston Martin, and several automotive analysis groups. Kuniskis, who has led a revival in sales for Ram, will be replaced by Matt Van Dyke, who spent 14 years with Ford Motor Company in a variety of roles, including Chief Marketing Officer and the CEO of Ford Direct, Ford's retail marketing and management arm. Since 2022, according to his LinkedIn profile, Van Dyke has led an independent automotive marketing firm called Shift Digital. Broderdorf, who has led Jeep since February 2025 after being appointed by Stellantis CEO Antonio Filosa, shared in a LinkedIn post that he was diagnosed with cancer and would be taking medical leave while a new executive filled his shoes. Quote, "Recently, my life took an unexpected turn when I was diagnosed with cancer," Broderdorf wrote. "But with it has come clarity and a lesson in priorities, perspective, and humility. One perspective has become impossible to ignore. Sometimes the greatest act of leadership is knowing when to put the team's needs ahead of your own," end quote. Broderdorf led Jeep while it refreshed its product lineup, launched several crafting marketing schemes, and released an all-new EV off-road vehicle. Broderdorf and Stellantis both said that he will have a new leadership position at Stellantis when he returns from medical leave. Quote, "I fully intend to come back stronger, healthier, and ready for whatever challenges come next, and I am so grateful to Stellantis for preserving my chair while giving me the time I need to get back," Broderdorf wrote. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Wednesday, July 29th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Circus. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been Mary Beth.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Nancy. This is the sports section. Bienemy to rely on strength of family and Chiefs. All of a sudden, football is on the back burner for Eric Bieniemy. Real life trumps that every time. Imagine the shock for Bieniemy, who returned this year to his old job as the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator, contacted at training camp on the night of July 26th with the horrible news his wife Mia was shot multiple times at their home in Northern Virginia. Thank God, Mia, 57, who was being treated for what authorities described as serious injuries, was in stable condition on Monday. The tragedy is compounded, though, with the arrest of their eldest son, Elijah, held without bond and facing 3 felony charges. Real life. It puts football in perspective. Eric will work through it, Chiefs coach Andy Reid told reporters following a rookie camp practice on Monday. He has a great support group here, as does his family as needed. And then we'll just let time take care of it from there. Bieniemy, 56, obviously is on leave of absence with no attached timetable. Never mind that the Chiefs veterans were set to report to the training camp at Missouri Western State University on July 28th. The work of retooling the offense while star quarterback Patrick Mahomes recovers from knee surgery will proceed without Bieniemy and be there whenever he comes back. Joe Blaymeyer, the passing game coordinator in his 10th season on Reid's staff, will handle the offensive coordinator duties while Bieniemy is away. On these things, real life, Reid added, so you take care of that, and that becomes important. I don't think there is a head coach in the NFL more sensitive to the crisis that has enveloped Bieniemy than Reid. In 2012, when Reid coached the Philadelphia Eagles, his training camp was rocked when his oldest son, Garrett, who worked for the team as an assistant strength and conditioning coach, was found dead in his dorm room of a heroin overdose. In 2021, Reid's other son, Britt, was involved in a car crash that left a girl, Ariel Young, in a coma for 11 days, among other injuries. It led to a DUI conviction and 3-year sentence, which was later commuted for the son who at the time worked as the Chiefs linebackers coach. So when Reid opened up Monday in speaking about Bieniemy's situation, it was wrapped with the compassion of someone who has walked in similar shoes of dealing with real-life crisis. Reid's experiences undoubtedly had a layer of support and a resource for Bieniemy that could be invaluable. We all love EB, and you hate seeing these things happen, Reid said. But there's a blessing in there somewhere, and so I know things will work out. Watching Reid's news conference reminded me of a specific point that Bieniemy made during our conversation in St. Joseph, Missouri on July 25th, following the Chiefs' first camp practice. In returning to the team after 3 years, he spent a season with the Washington Commanders, with the team's Loudoun County, Virginia headquarters near the home where the tragedy unfolded, followed by 1-season stints at UCLA and with the Chicago Bears. He maintained that reuniting with Reid and the Chiefs felt like coming home. He spent 10 seasons on Reid's staff with the Chiefs in his previous stint, including the last 5 as offensive coordinator, but left to theoretically improve his chances of becoming an NFL head coach. The one thing you learn, it ain't necessarily where you work, but more importantly, who you work with, Bieniemy told USA Today Sports in an exclusive interview. Do not get me wrong, all of these opportunities that I've had, great experiences, great organizations, I had the time of my life working for them. But when you become part of a family that you know from top to bottom, and you're treated like family, you have a tendency to miss what you were a part of. Family. It sure sounded like that type of connection, too, as Reed spoke. Mia is stable, which is a plus, Reed said, and so is Eric. That's all important, all right. Eric III, the younger of the two Bieniemy sons, has cerebral palsy. During an interview in 2020, Bieniemy told me how his son impacted his growth as a coach and leader. The first 5 years of his life, we lived in and out of a hospital, Bieniemy told me in 2020. He's confined to a wheelchair, but he doesn't ask for sympathy. Beautiful kid. He's the backbone of our family. He's the energy we feed off of. But what it also allows you is sense to not take some of the things that we as people take for granted because our son doesn't have blessings like others. Consider, too, how Mia's role as a caregiver has been essential. Said Reed, she's a saint, one of God's blessings right there now. Special person. I spent 3 days at the Chiefs camp at St. Joseph over the weekend, and besides the reality that all eyes were fixed on Mahomes as he recovers from knee surgery, no one had a bigger presence on the practice field than Bieniemy. If you didn't see him huddling with Reed 1 minute, chatting with Mahomes a few minutes later, he could surely be heard. His intensity was palatable in moments that begged for some, extra volume as coaches are prone to use in pointing out mistakes. It's no wonder that Mahomes, like Reed and others in the Chief organization, are so upbeat about Bieniemy's return and the energy that comes with him, along with his prickly demands for attention to detail. He's one of the league's most respected assistant coaches for a good reason. We talked all football on Saturday, given his task to pump life into a Chiefs offense that skipped a few beats during the 6-11 tumble last season and heaped way too much of a load on Mahomes. He talked a lot about fundamentals, consistency, and balance. Of course, he was fired up to reconnect with Mahomes, who was on a fast track to fully recover from the torn ACL and LCL in his left knee suffered in mid-December. If there's anybody that's probably been a little more sensitive about his injury, it's probably me, Bieniemy told me, because I just want to make sure that he gets to the finish line. But also understanding Pat. Pat is a competitor, and the thing I love about him is that he doesn't take anything for granted. The same can be said for Bieniemy, especially now, given another dose of real life that puts football in a different perspective. British Open's 50-year journey from 6 pros to a women's major, and earned prestige. Laura Davies received 2 candlestick holders and £9,000 when she won the 1986 Women's British Open. Only the Ladies Golf Union back then didn't offer a replica trophy, so Davies, mother and stepfather, had one made for her birthday. Within touching distance as we speak, said 60-year-old Davis by phone of the prized silver candle holder she kindly polished up for a picture. British golf writer Louise Mayer recalled that a 22-year-old Davies walking into a cramped clubhouse at Birkdale after her 4-stroke victory in search of a phone. She got into her car and dashed down the road to one of those red call boxes and rang her mother, said Mayer, before the prize giving, if I recall. The Women's British Open was 10 years old at that point and had already been on the verge of collapse after failing to find a sponsor in 1983. Davies' victory marked a turning point for one vulnerable event. This year at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's, the championship celebrates its 50th anniversary. While the Women's British has carried the prestige of a major since 2001, the feel of the event, from staging to prize funds to venue, has reached unprecedented heights since the R&A took control in 2017 and brought AIG on as title sponsor in 2019. When England's Georgia Hall won at Royal Lytham in 2018, the purse was $3.25 million. It has since more than tripled to $10 million. That is light years away from the first edition in 1976, when two pros, Vivian Saunders and Gwen Brandom, put up part of the prize fund of £500 to help turn the British ladies' stroke play into an event for professionals. It was very much like most of the amateur events that I played in, said England's Jenny Lee Smith, who won the inaugural event while still an amateur. I think there was only a half a dozen pros playing, no leaderboards, no scorers. The Fulford Ladies Club members pulled our trolleys. As official program from the event notes, there were 5 pros, and England Saunders, who got her money back, won the second edition in 1977. The British pantyhose maker, Pretty Polly, was the event's first title sponsor from 1979 to 1982. After the tournament was canceled in 1989, Hitachi came to the rescue, and the Toyota conglomerate was rewarded with an 11-stroke victory by Japanese star Ayako Okamoto, who would eventually be inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame. Another eventual Hall of Famer, Betsy King, won the 1985 edition, and then, after Davies delighted the home crown, Weetabix came on board, marking the beginning of a long and stable run. Patty Sheehan isn't sure how the idea of her playing in the British Open came about in 1992, but after winning the U.S. Women's Open, she was about 6th on the alternate list to play at Woburn. She got into the field the week prior to the event and arrived in England with no clubs and no suitcase. She bought replacements for everything and borrowed the assistant pros clubs, which were 4 swing weights heavier for the practice rounds. Sheehan's clubs and clothes arrived in time for the first round, and she went on to win by 3 strokes. It was the first and only time that a person has won the U.S. Women's Open and the British Open in the same year, said Sheehan. I think that's the only record I hold. In 1994, the event became part of the LPGA schedule, and Carrie Webb won the first of 3 British Open titles in 1995 by 6 strokes. The only players to win 3 British Open titles is Wisconsin's Sherry Steinhauer, who went back-to-back in 1998 and 1999, before winning it in 2006 at Lytham for a second time as a major. The first time at Lytham, Steinhauer walked the golf course backward so that she could get a better view of all the bunkers, a tactic she read about somewhere. Steinhauer, for the record, didn't go in a single fairway bunker in 1998. The weather was so horrendous that week that she won, and despite an opening 9- over 81. Steinhauer's run at the British was so charmed, in fact, that after she won her first title, her hotel bill was mysteriously paid for the next 4 years. In 2001, Se Ri Pak won the first British Open that was designated a major championship. The move came after the Du Mauer Classic lost its title sponsor when changes were made to tobacco regulations. In 2002, the event was held outside England for the first time, with Webb winning her 3rd title at Turnberry. For Karen Stupples, the British Open was the pinnacle of championship golf, the only big event she followed as a kid growing up in the coastal town of Deal. When Stupples started the final round at Sunningdale in 2004 with an eagle followed by an albatross, the closing 64 won her the title that changed her life. I always think that sometimes things are just meant to happen, says Stupples. I come from a family that always worked really hard and always struggled to have nice things. This was the universe's way of giving my family and me a little something back. And what it did was it turned my life around. I was able to do things for my family that I would have never done before, financially, and it's given me a life after golf. I'm not sure that I would be talking about golf on TV had I not won a major championship. In 2007, world number one Lorena Ochoa won the first women's professional event after staged over the old course at St. Andrews. Ochoa opened with a bogey-free, bunker-free course record, 6 under 67, and never relented, winning by 4. A current or former number one player has won all 3 editions of the Women's British Open at St. Andrews, with Stacey Lewis in 2013 and Lydia Ko 2024 following suit. The 2007 edition also marked the start of Ricoh's important run as title sponsor, which lasted until 2018. Scotland's Catriona Matthew famously became the first Scot to win the British in 2009, 11 weeks after giving birth to her second daughter, Sophie. Over the next 15 years, the championship was held at 4 traditional men's open venues for the first time. Carnoustie in 2011, Royal Liverpool 2012, Royal Troon 2020, and Muirfield 2022. The most recent British player to win the British Open was Hall at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's in 2018. The first Brit to win the British Girls, British Ladies Amateur, and Women's British Open, a 22-year-old Hall drew impressive crowds on a flawless day. A 30-year-old Hall returns this week after giving birth to son Connor back in February, hoping to channel some of Matthew's magic. It's never been harder, however, to win at home. From 2016 to 2024, players from 9 countries hoisted the British Open trophy. It's been 23 years since Annika Sorenstam completed the career Grand Slam with one-shot victory over Say Rai Pak at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's. This week, world number 1 Nelly Korda has a chance to do the same. Korda won the first 2 majors of the season, claiming her 4th career major title at the U.S. Opens at Riviera. Her best finish at the British is a share of second 2 years ago at the Old Course. When Stupples walked down the 18th at Lytham as an on-course reporter 8 years ago, she relived her own British Open victory as she listened to the home crowd call out Georgia Hall's name. The moment wasn't just about Hall, of course. It was about the seeds that were planted for young British girls, just as they were for Stupples when she read about Davis's triumph at Birkdale in the Telegraph 40 years ago. The next thing you know, you've got a whole crop of new players ready to take on those challenges, says Stupples. They all want to be part of her greatness and part of that dream, and that's why you do it. With 2 Brits, Lottie Wood and Charlie Hull, in the top 10 in the world and a strong infrastructure in place for up-and-comers, Stupples believes British golf has never been healthier. That, of course, includes the health of the home major, a global force that has come a long way since 5 pros played for 500 pounds 50 years ago. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. UFL players head to NFL camp seeking a step up for 2026. NFL training camps are opening up, and with it comes battles for position on each team's 53-man roster. Plenty of those spots will go to grizzled NFL veterans, but there will be players hoping to make the jump from the UFL. Entering training camp, 23 UFL players had signed contracts with NFL teams. They will look to become the latest spring league standout to make it onto rosters and develop into key role players like Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Cavante Turpin and kicker Brandon Aubrey. Which players have the best chance? A look at 5 former UFL players who could challenge the roster spots in 2026. Number 1, Tanner Brown, position kicker, team New Orleans Saints. Historically, the biggest NFL contributor to come out of spring football leagues have been special teams players. Aubrey and Jake Bates have turned into 2 of the NFL's best kickers, and Brown will look to become the latest in UFL to NFL kicker pipeline. Brown made 89% of his field goals in 2026, good for the second highest mark among kickers with at least 10 field goal attempts, and made a league-high 25 field goals. He showed good range with a long of 60 and earned the UFL Special Teams Player of the Year award as a result of his strong effort. Brown will compete with Charlie Smythe, who made 12 of 16 field goals across games for the Saints last year. Number 2, Major Burns, position safety, team Miami Dolphins. Burns was tremendous in his first season with the Houston Gamblers. The former LSU safety led the UFL with 4 interceptions while allowing a minuscule 29.4 passer ratings and coverage per Pro Football Focus. The imposing safety also has great size at 6'2", 207 pounds, which should help him hold up as a role player in the NFL level. Burns landed in a great situation with the Dolphins, who are rebuilding and don't have much proven talent at safety. That could give Burns a path toward making the roster, especially if he can continue to show off quality ball hawk skills in the preseason. Number 3, Ian Wheeler, position running back, team Buffalo Bills. Wheeler made 1 start for the Louisville Kings last season, but he emerged as the team's top running back amid its run to a UFL title. The physical runner showed good burst and averaged an impressive 5.4 yards per carry, which ranked second best league-wide among qualified runners, behind only Marcus Yarn's 5.7. Wheeler also averaged 28.5 yards per kick return last season, which ranked him 5th in the UFL. That will give him multiple paths to earning a roster spot with the Bills, who have a solid rotation set at running back with James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson, but just 5 total running backs on their 53-man roster. Hakeem Butler, position wide receiver, team Denver Broncos. Butler led the UFL in receiving yards last season with 641, while averaging a whopping 22.1 yards per reception. That came despite him playing in just 9 games and helped him to earn the UFL's Offensive Player of the Year award for the second time in 3 years. Butler's size, 6'5", makes him a good contested catch weapon option. It has not fully come together for Butler across his 3 previous NFL stints, including appearing in 2 games with the Eagles in 2020. But there is a way a 30-year-old could make an impact on Sean Payton's offense as a situational red zone threat. Sean Fresh Jr., position cornerback / returner, team Denver Broncos. Butler isn't the only Broncos signee who could pan out. Fresh could find himself a role on the roster, though it will more likely come on special teams than on defense. Fresh logged a solid 33 tackles and 2 sacks on defense across 10 games, 2 starts for the St. Louis Battlehawks. That said, the 5'9", 181-pound defensive back was more impressive on special teams, where he averaged an impressive 10.4 yards per punt returns on 32 returns. Fresh's return skills give him versatility that could prove valuable in the modern NFL, given the game's increased emphasis on special teams. It may not be likely for Fresh to beat Marvin Mims Jr., who averaged 15.6 yards per punt return last season, second best in the NFL, for the main punt returner job, but Peyton could value having an extra returner depth. North Carolina program, a wild mess. We're focusing on the wrong people here, everyone, at the wrong time and in the wrong moment with the never-ending mess at North Carolina. Bill Belichick was an out-of-work football coach no one wanted. Michael Lombardi was an out-of-work former NFL personnel executive no one wanted. And Lee Roberts and John Pryor, arguably the two most powerful men in the state of North Carolina, decided to go all in with an all involved in December of 2024 to save a North Carolina football program that didn't necessarily need saving, it needed tweaking. So they threw $30 million guaranteed at a football coach and tens of millions more in name, image, and likeness cash so he and his hand-picked general manager could execute the worst roster rebuild in the NIL era without a hint of oversight. Nearly 20 months later, all UNC has to show for its 4 wins and abject humiliation. The latest embarrassment, Lombardi's suspension from the program July 27 for an alleged human resources complaint filed by a former UNC front office employee, ESPN reported. This is what happens when you get academia blowhards involved in the hiring and firing of coaches. They deal in fandom, not in an athletic director's real world, nut-cutting reality of this hire could get me fired. Forget about due diligence or background checks or social media scrubs. How about simply calling one of 32 NFL owners and asking why Belichick and Lombardi were persona non grata? Why a man with 6 Super Bowl rings as head coach of the New England Patriots couldn't get a job in the league he owned for 2 decades? Why a personnel executive hadn't worked in the NFL since leaving the Patriots in 2016 and had a GM role once was fired 13 months later. Why Jordan Hudson, a then 24-year-old former beauty pageant contestant, was tagging along with the coach and his 6 rings because the coach believed she was his muse. I mean, my God, that alone, excluding into the reality that no one in the NFL wanted Belichick and Lombardi, should have been a massive red flag whipping in the wind, begging North Carolina to walk away from the train wreck waiting to happen. Want to blame someone for the off-Broadway disaster of Belly, Lombardi, and the Muse? Blame Roberts, the chancellor at UNC, and Pryor, then the chairman of the powerful UNC Chapel Hill Board of Trustees. These 2 stalwarts of academia pushed aside North Carolina athletic director Bubba Cunningham, who wanted to hire then Iowa State coach Matt Campbell, and declared they were running the show, or search committee. This is what they got for their fandom. Pryor left the board in January, leaving Roberts to hold this humiliating bag of steaming puke. The only way Roberts and Belichick survive is if Belichick has somehow figured out, after stumbling through his now 2nd roster rebuild. That's right. A year after Belichick and Lombardi signed 70 new players, high school recruiting and transfer portal, in 2025, they signed 60 more for 2026. I'm no math major, but that's a rather large percentage of misses from the first class that made up the 33rd team. Lombardi and Belichick's declaration that UNC would be the 33rd NFL team. Utterly laughable. Belichick and Lombardi fielded a team in 2025 that won 2 ACC games, one against lowly Stanford and interim coach Frank Reich, and the other against the Syracuse team that was using a lacrosse player at quarterback because there was no other healthy option on the roster, and still led 10-6 at halftime. Belichick and Lombardi fielded a team that lost to in-state rivals Duke, NC State, and Wake Forest in the same season for the first time since 1989. A team whose only other wins were against FCS Richmond and Group of Five Charlotte. But Roberts and Pryor got their men, got the coach with the Super Bowl rings and his general manager, neither of whom had any modern-day college roster building experience. They got Belichick and his embarrassing muse, and got Lombardi and an embarrassing human resource complaint. They got a 25-year-old competitive cheerleader sending Freedom of Information Act requests all over the university, desperately trying to find who leaked information that she was not allowed in the football building because of all the drama she created. I ask you, what could go wrong with circumventing the athletic director and hiring people no one wanted at a critical point in the evolution of the North Carolina football program? Ask Pryor and Roberts. This mess is on them. 9-game SEC skied, loathed by the coaches in the league. At a time when college football seems so irrevocably divided, SEC football coaches are united in crying out about a 9-game conference schedule. Nothing bands men in headsets together like digesting the reality that they'll have one fewer cupcake opponent. Even coaches who used to support a 9-game conference schedule, like Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz, have grown skeptical of it now that it's here. Drinkwitz told reporters at SEC Media Days in Tampa, Florida, that coaches are having some buyer's remorse to the SEC adding an additional league game. We're all saying it, Drinkwitz said. They regret it, even before experiencing it or seeing how it'll play out or how it'll affect the college football playoff pursuits of their teams. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey wanted this 9th game. He persuaded university presidents and chancellors to approve it. The coaches in Sankey's league didn't want this. It will challenge our team, Sankey said. It will prepare them for the highest level of competition. It reflects who we are as a conference. Try telling that to the league's coaches, a profession that specializes in airing grievances. If we keep playing each other, we don't prove we're better than anyone else. LSU's Lane Kiffin said from the pulpit at Media Days, tripling down on his opposition to a 9th SEC game. SEC coaches would rather play against Southwest Cupcake State than face an extra game against the likes of Kentucky or Mississippi State or Auburn or Florida. I get it. Wins help job security. Losses hurt job security. That's easy to understand. Also, although it's untrue that the playoff committee doesn't value strength of schedule and looks only at record, how else to explain 10-3 Alabama getting a bid over 11-2 BYU? It's true, you're better off going 12-1 against a meek schedule than 9-3 against a rugged slate. But here's what SEC coaches won't say. The CFP Selection Committee respects and always has respected the SEC more than any other conference. In 2 years of 12-team playoff, the SEC garnered 8 bids, the most of any conference. This 9th conference game will provide another valuable data point for the selection committee and help the committee more effectively determine which teams are the top 4 or 5 teams in the SEC. As long as the playoff continues in this 12-team format, the SEC likely will average about 4 bids a year. That won't substantially change whether the conference plays 8 or 9 conference games. So, if you're going to receive about 4 bids per year, shouldn't you at least try to ensure you're getting your 4 best teams from the conference into the bracket? That's what this extra conference game will do. It will boost the chances that the 3 or 4 or 5 SEC teams that earn a bid are actually the 3 or 4 of 5 best teams from the SEC. Coaches are among the first to complain about the committee, but they don't want to do the thing that'll help the committee do its job. That's playing more relevant games and fewer cupcakes. A 9th SEC game will add clarity to league standings. When the SEC expanded to 16 teams, it initially stayed with an 8-game conference schedule. That meant each team faced only half of its conference peers. That made it difficult to determine an accurate hierarchy. The standings and records were undeniably influenced by a team's scheduled draw. An extra conference game won't eliminate that, but it at least will add more clarity. The more conference games you play, the more you separate the wheat from the chaff. Think about it. If every team played 12 cupcakes and no legitimate opponents, the committee would have a tough time determining the best teams from a particular conference. If every team played exclusively conference game, it becomes much easier to determine a league's pecking order. Short of an SEC breakaway or another pandemic, the SEC isn't going to play an SEC-only schedule. But the more conference games teams play, the easier it is to determine an accurate hierarchy. Here's the other thing most coaches don't say. A 9th SEC game will enhance the product for the people who pay the bills and pay the salaries. That's the media partners and the fans. If ESPN wants more games like Chattanooga versus Alabama, trust me, there'd be no 9th conference game. Television partners want conference clashes or marquee non-conference battles. They don't want games that'll be 31-0 by halftime. Maybe coaches shouldn't care about what ESPN wants, but shouldn't an SEC coach want the 4 SEC teams that make the playoffs to actually be the best 4 SEC teams? This extra conference game will boost the chances of that happening. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 37 minutes after the hour. This is the Life section. Black burners storm the desert. When Ray Christensen added Burning Man to his bucket list, his family and friends didn't believe him, especially since his wife, Tiffany Christian, had already vetoed his other plans, like Spain's running of the bulls. I did some research and found out life insurance does not pay if you die while running with the bulls, Tiffany says in the new HBO Max docuseries, The Man Will Burn, streaming now. So, Christian sought out the next daredevil adventure, Burning Man. For the Gulf War veteran from rural North Carolina, Burning Man wasn't just about spectacle. It was about healing, no matter how challenging it may be. I knew it was going to be hard, Christian, 65, tells USA Today. The physical environment, people, so many people, and so many white people having a good time. What definitely is not my typical environment, not in the least. Christian says he used his to isolation based on where he lives. His family often is the only black family many of their neighbors have ever known. Living with post-traumatic stress disorder, he decided to travel to Black Rock Desert to face his demons. What is Burning Man? Every year, tens of thousands of people, traveled to Nevada's Black Rock Desert to build a temporary city devoted to art, radical self-expression, and community. In The Man Will Burn, directors Jahan Nujam and Vikram Gandhi follow an eclectic mixer of burners, from tech billionaires to working-class folks, seeking a spiritual and often literal high in the city 100 miles north of Reno, Nevada. The four-part docuseries, whose third part was released July 23rd, looks at the class divide among playa participants and how the Leave No Trace environmental ethos and communal lifestyle attempt to dissolve cultural and socio-economic differences. In 2025, 8.4% of Burning Man attendees identified as Black, according to the Black Rock City Census. Although the figure has shown a steady increase over the past decade, white burners made up 74.7% of attendees. Black burners attribute low figures to lack of awareness and fear among Black people. Larry Harvey, the late founder of Burning Man, has responded to backlash around inclusion, telling The Guardian in 2015, "I don't think Black folks like to camp as much as white folks." He added that it's not the organization's responsibility to solve the problem of racial parity. As a result, other organizations have skipped Burning Man. Thunderdome Death Guild, known for its fighting cage of consensual violence, chose not to participate in Burning Man in 2021 because it was lacking in diversity, according to a statement from their organization. Burning Man challenges for Black attendees. Burning Man takes place in the Black Rock Desert, a dried-up lakebed made up of chalky, alkaline dust. As thousands descend onto the playa in art, cars, bikes, and RVs, increased traffic can trigger blinding dust storms. When Christian arrived at Burning Man in 2022, he christened the experience by rolling in the dust, as he featured in the documentary. On his first day in the desert, he had flashbacks of serving in the Gulf War. The smell, the sound of it, the feel of it, the heat, the way dust moves, the clanking sounds, and the way they sound in a big open space, Christian says, it just reminded me of staging for the war and the sounds. Patrons also are exposed to high winds and extreme temperatures. In 2023, torrential rain turned the playa into thick mud, leaving many burners, including Christian, stranded in the desert. The heat and the dust can break you, Christian says. It's not like that after the festival you go back to the hotel room, wash up, get a breath, get the AC, and go back. Christian also had unwelcome encounters with some white women, which he says reminded him of experience he had growing up in the South. In more than one instance, Christian recalled a woman asking him, "Are you looking at us, or are you standing too close?" Diva-ish behavior, like you were staring or oogling them, Christian said, referring to the microaggressions. That's something I hadn't encountered in decades. Aaron Douglas, a photographer and founder of the Black Burner Project, also faced an initial hurdle of spreading awareness in the Black community. When she posted photos of her first Burning Man in 2017, she received repeated emails and direct messages from Black people saying, "I didn't know Black people were there, and I didn't know if I was allowed." The following year, Douglas, 43, decided to document the Burning Man experience, calling it Black Burner Project. As a frequent attendee, she has learned to pack vinegar in her backpack, along with goggles, a face mask, and toilet paper. The desert's alkaline dust dries out her skin, so she uses a vinegar and water-based spray to keep it moisturized and combat the stigma. It was my own internal thing that a lot of us probably do carry because historically, It means unkept or ashy dry, Douglas tells USA Today. So that was a huge thing for me. Although other black attendees have told Douglas stories about the microaggressions and racism they've experienced on the playa, she says majority of people report positive experiences. Douglas has provided free tickets to burners who need financial support and has worked with Burning Man to make tickets more accessible to people of color. Ticket prices range from $550 to $3,000. She also has curated large-scale art pieces, such as two 30-foot black portraits in 2022 and a model barbershop in 2024, complete with affirmation stations and healing circles for men. I call it a PhD in self in 7 days, Douglas says. You get in touch with yourself in a way that most opportunities don't give you, while also being supported and loved on by a community, especially for black people. Daquan Carruthers, 41, arrived at the Desert City in 2022 after receiving an invitation from his friend Antoine Calderon. Carruthers, co-founder of the Black Flame Collective, recently lost his younger brother and went to Burning Man to get in touch with his emotional side. It's like being at the laundromat for your spirit. You get what I mean? Carruthers said. What you get to wash, you get to dry, and then you get to fold yourself up and be new again. As a co-founder of the Black Flame Collective, Calderon hopes to create a beacon of representation. He credits low attendance to its isolated location in northern Nevada and a lack of know-how among black people, but believes the numbers are growing. I would say ultimately it's the fear of, is it safe? Is it inclusive? Will it be fun? Calderon says, because it seems like it's a space only for white people. So why would I go out there? For Calderon, who has been attending Burning Man since 2016, all the stereotypes around drugs, sex, and partying are true, but he counters that it's a transformative experience. He recounts tear-filled moments mourning the loss of his father and other moments centered on the community. All people, but specifically black people, don't have a lot of spaces to be vulnerable, Calderon says, and we show up a lot of ways with masks. We got to talk about where we work, what college we went to, what kind of car we drive. We're worried about how we're presenting. But out there, everybody's dusty, so none of that matters. So what matters is, who are you? Brand New Day shows the love for Spidey. In the Spider-Man mythology, there's just something special about Peter Parker and MJ. In comic books since the 1980s and in the 2000s Tobey Maguire movies, MJ meant Mary Jane Watson, arguably the teen web slinger's greatest love. In the recent Tom Holland Spider films, the initials are a nickname for Michelle Jones, and like all of the teen heroes' romances, theirs is a little complicated. Spider-Man Brand New Day in theaters July 31st catches up with Peter after he makes a tough call. To save the world, he needed to be wiped from the memories of everyone, including his girlfriend, MJ, Zendaya, and best friend, Ned Leeds, Jacob Batalon. The new movie finds Peter coming to grips psychologically with meeting them again for the first time, especially MJ, though the new enemy also emerges to test him as Spider-Man. Dive into the Spidey's comic history, and he has gone through all sorts of relationship drama. Marvel fans new and old can now dig into issues on USA Today Play and see it for themselves, from the old 1960s Amazing Spider-Man comic to the new exclusive Spider-Man Today series. Over the years, there was fellow student Liz Allen, Daily Bugle co-worker Betty Brant, and Gwen Stacy. an early love interest infamously killed by the Green Goblin, who has become in later years an iconic superhero herself, Ghost Spider. Then there's Mary Jane, who has been Peter's wife and confidant over several iterations of the Marvel legend. So, are MJ and Peter forever? It's a big question, says Spider-Man editor Nick Lowe, and he can't totally get on board with the thought because that sort of betrays the soap opera brilliance of Spider-Man as a character, he says. Lowe does appreciate, however, that they have run with it in the movies. Tom Holland and Zendaya, you could easily believe they're in love, right? He says of the real-life couple. With the end of that last movie, with the memory wipe, what are they going to do? I'm well known in the halls of Marvel as one of the biggest pushers of romance. I love kissing in comics. The more of that we can get, the better. And I so love that they're embracing that in the movies as well. All of the Spider-Man movies have their own special flavor, their own special awesomeness, Lowe adds. Yet he feels that Brand New Day might have dug the most into the comics, from direct homages to specific covers and panels to a bevy of new movie villains from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, including Scorpion, Tarantula, and Tombstone, one of Lowe's all-time fave baddies. When it comes to picking the best movie Spidey, though Lowe is at a loss, there's things I love about each of them, he says. Tobey Maguire, his nerdiness is just so wonderful, and his humanity was incredible. Andrew Garfield, what an actor. Tall, lanky, a little cooler than Tobey, but such a heart. And then you get Tom Holland, who basically is a Spider-Man, jumping, leaping everywhere like that. He looks a little bit more youthful, and the heart there is just unbelievable. I've got 3 kids the same. I can't really pick a favorite. Love triangle complicates canon life. Warning, this story contains spoilers from Season 2 of Ransom Canyon, streaming now on Netflix. Netflix's modern Western romance, Ransom Canyon, built its 2025 Season 1 around the slow burn romance between Quinn O'Grady, played by Minka Kelly, and Stanton Kirtland, played by Josh Duhamel. Season 2, now streaming, expand Ransom Canyon's first couple, Quinn Stanton to Quinn Stanton Oliver. That's right, Duhamel, 53, and Kelly, 46, are now part of a central love story triangle, with the romantic arrival of Quinn's cello-playing British boyfriend, Oliver, played by Ben Robson, to the fictional Texas town. The irony is that all things that Oliver says and does are everything that Quinn wishes that Stanton would have said and done, Kelly tells USA Today during a joint interview with Duhamel. Oliver is everything that she's ever wanted, but it's kind of the wrong person. What happened to Stanton and Quinn at the end of Season 1? Season 1 ended with Quinn leaving Stanton and Ransom Canyon for New York City to play piano with the New York Philharmonic, where she met Oliver. At the end of Season 1, Quinn's frustrated with Stanton. It's like enough is enough, and she meets this new guy, Kelly says. It's easy to romanticize the new shiny thing. During Quinn's time away, Stanton has shared his short romances while ignoring his New York City love. Stanton becomes Ransom's newest bicycle. Everyone wants a ride, Duhamel says. And he didn't text. He didn't go see Quinn. He's got real feelings for her, but he doesn't communicate them. So whatever he's got coming, he deserves. Oliver shows up in Ransom Canyon and proposes marriage. Just as Stanton works up the guts to open up and show his love to Quinn at her Season 2 welcome home party, Oliver shows up dramatically and proposes by fairy lights in a gazebo. Quinn defers on the proposal but starts seeing Oliver in their new setting, creating the love triangle. Oliver is modern romance novel perfect, handsome with devil-may-care hair. He's understanding even after the proposal rejection, patient, romantic, and able to state that British Love Island is superior to American Love Island. Throw in the British accent and we're talking. It feels fresh and new, Kelly says. But when she's at home, she realizes the grass isn't always greener, even though it's very pretty. Kelly learned TV piano from her musician husband. With all the musical talent in town, piano-playing Quinn decides to start a Ransom Canyon Music Festival. In real life, Kelly took her on-screen piano-playing skills seriously, getting lessons from her partner. Imagine Dragons lead singer Dan Reynolds as well as a local piano teacher. I don't know how to read music, but I learned how to play by playing it over and over millions of times until my hands automatically know how to play it, Kelly says. Living with a classical pianist at home is very helpful for lessons. It's my little cheat code. It's a little cheating that I live with my teacher. That is utilizing the resources you have around you, Duhamel adds. Staten has daddy issues while Duhamel understands ranch work. In Season 2, Quinn has to deal with the arrival of her mother, Patricia Clarkson, who is trying to sell the beloved family home. Staten battles his own father, former Senator Sam Kirtland, Brett Cullen, who takes control of the family ranch, reigniting a lifelong feud between the stubborn father and son. Duhamel knows what he's talking about when Staten launches into a detailed spiel about farming equipment and tractor attachments. After all, the Las Vegas star lives on a farm in northern Minnesota with his wife, Audra Mary, where he's embraced the hands-on rural lifestyle. I have that equipment at my place in Minnesota, and I'm always dealing with my attachments, whether it's the grappler or the hedgehog or the bucket, Duhamel said. It helps me to wrap my arms around what kind of work this guy does every day. How long does the Ransom Canyon love triangle last? All you need to do is go to IMDb to see that Oliver appears in only 8 of the 10 episodes. It's a good run, but there's no denying Quinn and Staten belong together on Ransom Canyon, as the couple make it official. It takes as long as it's supposed to, but when Staten and Quinn do come together, they've actually earned it, Kelly says. When you have a connection with someone in your life, it's really like home is where the heart is, and Staten's her home. The end of Season 2 marks the end of the Sam and Diane suspense love angle on Ransom Canyon. You can only do the will they won't they for so long. You can only do the will they won't they for so long, Duhamel says. We can all fall in love or lust or pine for someone, but what I find interesting is what it's like for the everyday domestic minuet for these two. I love that. Fans can hopefully look forward to fully coupled up moments in Season 3, maybe even the patter of little feet, or at least the discussion. I personally would love to see this couple have a baby, Duhamel says. I mean, it's possible. It's an exciting idea, Kelly says. Or maybe the man wanting a baby, and maybe Quinn doesn't want to. What does that look like? You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 8 of More Than Enough by Anna Quinlan. Following that, at 3 o'clock is Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock is a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.